Abandoned at the altar because he could no longer walk, he sits still before hundreds of silent guests. A poor little girl approaches, asks why he's crying, and calls her mother, a buffet worker, to dance with him. As everyone watches, that simple gesture gives him back something he had lost, the feeling of being seen. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. And now, on with the story. The Oak Room at the Plaza Hotel in New York City was immaculate that Saturday morning. White flowers filled every corner, arrangements of roses and lilies hung from the soaring ceiling, and the natural light pouring through the enormous windows created a scene worthy of a magazine cover. 200 chairs upholstered in white satin were arranged in perfect rows, all facing an altar, decorated with imported hydrangeas. At the center of it all, sitting in his modern and discreet wheelchair, Ryan Evans waited. He adjusted the knot of his tie for the 5th time in a minute. His hands trembled slightly, not from the usual pre-wedding jitters, but from something he couldn't quite name. It was a strange sensation, as if his body knew something his mind still refused to accept. Ryan was 33, with neatly cut dark hair, deep brown eyes, and a look that shifted between the determination of a man who had built a real estate empire and the vulnerability of someone who hadn't yet made peace with his own reflection. 2 years. It had been 2 years since the accident on the winding road up to the Catskills, a rainy night, a miscalculated turn, a split second of distraction. When he woke up in the hospital 3 weeks later, the doctors were blunt. His lumbar vertebrae had been severely compromised. Physical therapy would help, but the chances of him walking again were minimal. Ryan spent months swinging between anger and denial until he finally accepted that his life would be different from then on. Not necessarily worse, just different. Jessica came into his life a year after the accident. She was an architect who worked for a firm that partnered with his, and she seemed genuinely interested in getting to know him. Ryan got attached way too fast. She was beautiful, smart, came from a traditional New York family, and treated him with a kindness he mistook for love. 6 months after their first date, Ryan proposed to her during a dinner at the Rainbow Room. Jessica said yes, and he finally felt like his life was starting over. But now, sitting there at the altar, in front of 200 people who were whispering while they waited for the bride, Ryan felt that something was wrong. The clock read 11:15. The ceremony was supposed to have started at 11. He glanced at his mother, Helen Evans, sitting in the front row in a flawless navy blue dress, her concern poorly disguised. She gave her son a forced smile and a discreet nod, as if to say everything was fine, that a little delay was normal. Ryan looked to his side and saw Brenda, his personal assistant for over 5 years, approaching with quick steps. Her face was pale. She leaned in and whispered something in his ear. Ryan frowned, took the phone Brenda was holding out to him, and read the message on the screen. It was from Jessica. "Ryan, I'm so sorry. I tried. I really did. But I can't do this. I can't marry half a man. You deserve someone who accepts you completely, and I'm not that person. Forgive me. Don't come looking for me." The world seemed to crumble around him. Ryan read the message twice, 3, 4 times. The words, "half a man," echoed inside his head like a scream no one else could hear. He looked up and saw that everyone in the room was starting to realize something was wrong. The murmurs grew louder. Some people pulled out their phones, others leaned in to talk to the person next to them. 200 pairs of eyes began to turn toward him, no longer with anticipation, but with pity. Ryan felt his face burn. Humiliation spread through his body like fire. He couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but sit there, paralyzed, while the entire room witnessed his abandonment. Brenda placed a hand on his shoulder, but he didn't even feel it. All Ryan could think about was that word, half. Half a man. As if he were incomplete. As if he weren't enough. Helen rose from her chair and walked to the altar with a hard expression on her face. She took the microphone reserved for the officiant and in a firm, controlled voice announced to everyone, "The bride suddenly fell ill and had to be taken to the hospital. The ceremony is cancelled, but the reception will continue. Please proceed to the reception hall. Thank you all for coming. It was a well-told lie, but everyone there knew it was a lie. Ryan saw it in their faces. He saw the pity, the discomfort, the relief on some faces that it wasn't them up there at the altar. Brenda pushed his wheelchair toward the back of the room, away from the prying eyes, as the guests began to stand and head to the other hall. The party would go on. Of course it would. Helen Evans would never allow a scandal like that to tarnish the family name. Better to pretend everything was fine, better to smile, better to move on. Ryan was taken to a side room, a space that normally served as a storage closet for chairs and supplies. Brenda closed the door and stood there, not knowing what to say. Ryan rested his elbows on his knees and buried his face in his hands. He hadn't cried since the accident, hadn't allowed the tears to fall, but now they came without asking. He sobbed quietly, trying to muffle the sound, but it was useless. The pain was too great. Half a man. The words kept echoing. Brenda slipped out quietly and left Ryan alone. He stayed there, in that dark, cold room, while on the other side of the door he could hear the muffled sounds of the party, music, laughter, conversations. Life went on, for everyone but him. He didn't know how much time had passed. It could have been 10 minutes or an hour. Ryan wiped his face with his hands and took a deep breath, trying to regain some control. That's when he heard the door open. He didn't even turn around, thinking it was Brenda coming back, but then he heard a small, curious voice. "Why are you crying?" Ryan lifted his head and saw a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, standing in the doorway. She wore a simple polka dot dress and was holding a worn-out teddy bear. Her eyes were large and dark, full of the kind of sincerity only children have. Ryan didn't know what to say. How do you explain to a child that you've been left at your own wedding because you're no longer considered whole? Before he could say anything, a woman appeared behind the girl. "Sophia, I told you not to leave my sight." Her tone was firm, but loving. The woman took the girl's hand and then saw Ryan there, alone, his face still streaked with tears. For a moment their eyes met, and something passed between them. It wasn't pity, it was recognition, as if she knew exactly what he was feeling. "I'm sorry, she didn't mean to bother you." The woman pulled her daughter back, but Sophia resisted. "He's sad, Mommy," the girl pointed at Ryan. "Aren't you going to help?" The woman hesitated. She was about 30, with brown hair tied back in a low ponytail, tan skin, and was wearing the simple uniform of the catering staff serving the party. There was a weariness in her face, but also a strength. Ryan saw it. She wasn't just another employee. She was someone who had been carrying her own weight for a long time. "I'm okay." Ryan tried to smile, but his voice came out choked. "Thanks for your concern." The woman looked at her daughter and then back at Ryan. She let go of Sophia's hand and took a step into the room. The girl stood in the doorway, watching everything with that intense childhood curiosity. "You're the groom, right?" the woman asked, her voice soft, without judgment. Ryan nodded, unable to say more. "I'm sorry," she said, and it sounded genuine. "I don't know what happened, but I know this must be really hard." Ryan looked at her, really looked, and felt something strange. He didn't know this woman. He'd never seen her before in his life. But there was something in the way she looked at him that made him feel seen. Not as the businessman, not as the rich man, not as the guy in the wheelchair. Just as Ryan. "It is hard," he admitted, and it was almost a relief to say it out loud. The woman stood there for a few more seconds, as if thinking about something. Then she glanced toward the door, where the party music was still playing, and turned her gaze back to Ryan. "Want to get out of here?" she asked. "Just for a minute. I think you need some air." Ryan hesitated. He didn't want to go back to that ballroom, didn't want to face the stairs, but at the same time he didn't want to be locked in that dark room for the rest of the night. "Come on, mister." The little girl held out her hand to him as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "We'll help you." Ryan looked at that tiny hand and felt something break inside him. He nodded and let the woman push his wheelchair out of the room. They took him down a side corridor away from the main hall to an outdoor balcony overlooking the hotel gardens. The evening was starting to fall, and the cool breeze hit Ryan's face like a reminder that he was still alive. The woman stopped the chair near the railing and stood beside him. Sophia ran into the garden, chasing imaginary butterflies on the grass. For a long time, neither of them said anything. They just stood there watching the little girl play. "My name is Camilla," the woman finally broke the silence. "Camilla Rodriguez." "Ryan," he replied, even though he knew she already knew. "Ryan Evans." "I know who you are," Camilla gave a small smile. "You own half the city, or at least that's what they say." Ryan let out a bitter laugh. "Half. Always half." Camilla frowned, confused by his comment, but didn't ask. Instead, she looked at Sophia and sighed. "I've been working for the catering company for 3 years. We do a lot of weddings." She paused. "But I've never seen a groom alone in a dark room. Sorry if I'm being nosy, but I thought you needed someone." Ryan turned his face to her. "Why did you do that?" Camilla shrugged. "Because everyone deserves to be seen," she said, as if it were obvious. "And you were being ignored at your own wedding." Ryan didn't know what to say. It had been so long since someone had spoken to him like that, without beating around the bush, without formality, without pity, just honestly. Sophia came running back and climbed into Ryan's lap without asking permission. He was surprised, but the girl was already comfortable, there showing him a little flower she had picked from the garden. "Look, mister, it's for you because you were sad." Ryan took the flower and felt his eyes sting again. He looked at Camilla, who was watching the scene with a gentle smile on her lips. "Sorry, she's very affectionate," Camilla said. "Don't apologize," Ryan murmured, holding the flower carefully. "Thank you, Sophia." The girl smiled, hopped off his lap, and went back to running through the garden. Ryan held that tiny flower, and for the first time on that horrible day he felt that maybe there was something beyond the pain. "Do you have someone who can take you home?" Camilla asked, breaking the moment. Ryan nodded. "My assistant is here." "Then I should probably get back to work." Camilla took a hesitant step back. "But it was nice to meet you, Ryan." "Really?" "It was nice to meet you too," Ryan said, and he meant it. Camilla called for Sophia, and the two of them started to walk away. Ryan stayed there, watching as they disappeared down the corridor. He looked at the flower in his hand, and something inside him shifted. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was a sliver of hope, and at that moment it was all he had. 3 days passed in a thick fog. Ryan barely left his room. Brenda tried to get him to eat, but he refused everything. His mother showed up twice, but Ryan didn't want to talk. Helen stood in the doorway, looking at her son, who seemed to have given up and left without a word. What could she say? That he should move on? That Jessica didn't deserve him? Empty words wouldn't heal this. On the morning of the 4th day, Ryan woke up and finally took a shower. He shaved, changed his clothes, and asked Brenda to come to his study. She appeared with a notepad and a look of relief on her face. "Brenda, I need you to find out who that woman from the catering company was. The one with the little girl." Brenda blinked, surprised. "The employee?" "Yes. Her name is Camilla Rodriguez. I need her address, phone number, everything you can find." Brenda didn't ask questions. She knew when Ryan was determined, and there was no point in arguing. 6 hours later, she returned with a printout. Camilla Rodriguez, 31, lived in the outer borough of Queens, in a neighborhood called Corona. Worked 3 different jobs to support her daughter. No record of a husband or partner. Brenda read it all aloud, and Ryan mentally noted every detail. "Thank you," he said, taking the paper from her. "Tomorrow morning I want the driver to take me to this address." Brenda hesitated. "Ryan, are you sure? It's a long way and—" "I'm sure." He cut her off, his tone final. The next day, Ryan woke up early. He put on casual clothes, jeans and a shirt, something he rarely wore. The driver took him to Corona, and the further they got from the upscale neighborhoods of Manhattan, the more Ryan noticed the contrast. The narrow streets, the simple houses, life happening in a raw, direct way. The car stopped in front of a small house, painted light blue with a rusty iron gate. Ryan asked the driver to help him out and then dismissed him. He wanted to do this alone. Ryan rang the doorbell and waited. A few seconds later, the door opened, and Camilla appeared with a look of absolute shock. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" He gave a sheepish smile. "I needed to thank you for the other day." Camilla just stood there processing, and then opened the gate. "You can come in." Ryan entered and saw that the house was simple but clean and well kept. There was an old couch in the living room, a small TV and children's drawings taped to the wall. Sophia came running out, excited to see Ryan. "Mister, you came!" "I did." Ryan smiled at the girl, and she jumped into his lap again without ceremony. Camilla watched it all with an expression Ryan couldn't decipher. She crossed her arms and waited for her daughter to calm down. "Sophia, go play in your room for a little bit," Camilla asked, and the girl obeyed, giving Ryan a kiss on the cheek before leaving. When they were alone, Camilla sat on the couch and faced Ryan. "Why are you really here?" Ryan took a deep breath. "Because you saw me. That day, when everyone else was pretending everything was okay, you were the only person who really saw me, and I wanted to thank you for that." Camilla looked down. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Ryan said firmly. "Most people would have walked right by, or they would have felt sorry for me, but you didn't. You treated me like a person." Camilla was silent for a moment. Then she looked up and met his gaze again. "Look, I don't know what you expect to happen here, but I'm not looking for a handout. If you came to offer me money or—" "That's not it," Ryan cut her off. "I didn't come to offer you money. I came to offer you friendship, if you want it." Camilla seemed disarmed by that. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Ryan took advantage of the silence. "I know we come from very different worlds, and I know you must think it's weird for me to just show up here. But the truth is, I don't have many real friends. Most people around me want something from me, money, connections, status. But you don't want anything, and that's rare." Camilla let out a low, almost sad laugh. "You don't even know me. How do you know I don't want anything?" "Because if you did, you would have asked for it that day," Ryan answered simply. Camilla looked at him for a long moment. Then she sighed and relaxed her shoulders. "Okay, friendship I'll accept, but I don't want any favors, okay? If we're going to be friends, it has to be as equals." "As equals," Ryan repeated and smiled. "I agree." Camilla held out her hand, and Ryan shook it. The handshake was firm, honest, and sealed something between them that neither of them could yet name. But it was there, and it was just beginning. The weeks that followed were strange for Ryan. He went back to work, resumed his meetings, signed contracts, and made decisions that moved millions of dollars. But whenever he came home at the end of the day, everything felt empty. The massive penthouse in Midtown, with its view of the entire city, felt more like a mausoleum than a home. He would wander through the large, silent rooms and feel a longing for something he couldn't name. It wasn't Jessica, he was sure of that. It was something else. It was life. It was human warmth. It was the feeling that someone genuinely cared. That's why Ryan started visiting Camilla and Sophia. At first, they were short visits, always with some excuse. He'd bring a gift for Sophia. A toy, a book, something the girl would receive with that giant smile that lit up everything around her. Camilla protested at first, saying he didn't have to do that, but Ryan insisted. It wasn't about the money. It was about having a reason to be there in that small house that felt more welcoming than any place he had ever lived. Camilla worked too much. Ryan figured that out quickly. She woke up at 5 in the morning to drop Sophia off at her grandmother's, took 2 buses to get to her first job, worked all day at a diner, then went to her catering job at night and often cleaned houses on the weekends. When Ryan asked why she worked herself to the bone like that, Camilla answered with a simplicity that completely disarmed him. "Because it's what has to be done. Sophia deserves a better life than I had, and I'm going to give it to her even if it kills me." Ryan admired that. He admired the strength of this woman who asked for nothing from anyone, who carried the world on her shoulders and still found the energy to smile. For her daughter at the end of the day. He wanted to help, but he knew Camilla would reject any offer that seemed like charity. So he got smarter. He offered her a job at his company. An administrative position, fair salary, full benefits. Camilla looked at him with those suspicious eyes and asked if it was out of pity. Ryan swore it wasn't. It was just an opportunity. She was smart, she had grit, she had everything he looked for in an employee. The position was real. Even so, Camilla refused. "I don't want anything I haven't earned. If I ever work at your company, it'll be because I went through the same process as everyone else. No special treatment, no shortcuts." Ryan was frustrated, but at the same time, impressed. This woman had a pride that he deeply respected. The visits continued. Ryan always showed up on Saturday afternoons after Camilla got home from work. They talked about everything, about life, about dreams, about pain. It was on one of those afternoons, sitting on the back porch while Sophia drew on the ground, that Camilla finally told him her story. "I got pregnant when I was 23, Camilla," began, her voice low and controlled. "Sophia's father was a guy I thought I loved. We dated for 2 years, and when I found out I was pregnant, I thought he'd be happy." She gave a bitter laugh. "He ghosted me the next day, moved out of state, changed his number, blocked me on everything. I never saw him again, and I've never received a dime of child support." Ryan felt anger rise in his throat. How could someone do that? How could someone abandon their own child? "I'm so sorry," was all he could manage to say, because any other words would have felt inadequate. Camilla shrugged, but Ryan saw the pain hidden there. "I spent the whole pregnancy alone. My mom had already passed. My dad was never around, so it was just me and my growing belly. I worked right up until the day I went into labor. Literally. I was waiting tables when my water broke." She laughed, but it was a sad laugh. "I took a cab to the hospital and had Sophia by myself. No one came to visit. No one asked if I was okay. But when I held her in my arms, for the first time I knew everything was going to be all right. Because she was mine, you know? She was my responsibility, my joy, my reason to keep going." Ryan looked at Sophia, who was drawing intently, oblivious to the adult conversation. She seemed so happy, so innocent. It was hard to imagine that this child had come into the world amidst so much abandonment. "You're so strong," Ryan said, and it wasn't flattery. It was the purest truth he knew. Camilla looked at him and smiled, but there was a sadness in that smile. "I'm not strong, I just do what needs to be done. There's a difference." "No," Ryan shook his head. "A lot of people give up. They throw in the towel. You didn't. That's strength." Camilla was silent for a moment, and then she looked at Ryan with an intensity that caught him off guard. "And you were abandoned too, but you're still here, you're still trying. Isn't that strength?" Ryan didn't know what to say. He had never thought of himself that way. He always saw himself as broken, incomplete, half a man. But maybe Camilla was right. Maybe just being here still, trying to live, was a form of courage in itself. The two fell silent, just watching Sophia play. And in that moment, Ryan realized something was forming between them. It wasn't attraction, not yet. It was recognition. It was the feeling of having found someone who understood, someone who also carried invisible scars but was still standing. A few weeks later, Ryan had an idea. He knew Sophia loved parks, but Camilla never had time to take her, so he suggested it. "How about we go to Central Park on Sunday? I'll take you guys. We can spend the afternoon." "There?" Camilla hesitated. "Ryan, are you sure? The park has a lot of dirt paths, stairs, places that are hard for—" "I know," Ryan cut her off, smiling. "I know it's hard, but I want to try. Please." Camilla looked at him for a long moment, and then she nodded. "Okay, let's try." On Sunday, Ryan sent the driver to pick up Camilla and Sophia. When they got in the car, the little girl was beaming, bouncing on the seat and chattering non-stop about all the things she wanted to do at the park. Camilla was smiling, but Ryan saw the worry in her eyes. She was afraid he would get frustrated, that the wheelchair would be too much of an obstacle. When they arrived at Central Park, Ryan realized the challenge. The park was huge, with dirt paths, uneven lawns, and an endless number of obstacles for someone in a wheelchair. But he was determined. He pushed the chair with his own hands, fighting against every pothole, every rock, every tree root in his path. Sophia ran ahead, yelling for him to hurry up, and Ryan laughed. Even when the chair got stuck and he needed help to get it moving again. Camilla tried to push the chair several times, but Ryan refused. "I've got it," he would say stubbornly. "I want to do this myself." And he did. Slowly, with effort. But he did it. They made it to the lake, and Sophia wanted to feed the ducks. Ryan bought some bread from a vendor and gave it to the girl, who threw pieces into the water with contagious joy. Camilla sat on a bench next to Ryan's chair, and the two of them just sat there, watching. "Thank you for this," Camilla said, her voice soft. "It's been a long time since I've seen her this happy." "Thank you," Ryan replied. "It's been a long time since I've felt this alive." Camilla turned her face to him, and their eyes met. There was something there, something neither of them was ready to name. But it was growing, slowly, silently, but it was there. Sophia came running back and climbed into Ryan's lap, soaking wet, because she had waded into the water to get a pebble. Camilla yelped, saying she was going to get his clothes dirty, but Ryan just laughed and held the girl tight. "It's okay. Clothes can be washed. But this," he gestured to Sophia, "this is priceless." In that moment, Ryan realized something. He was happy, genuinely happy, and it had been so long since he'd felt that, he had almost forgotten what it was like. The following weeks were a whirlwind of small moments that built something bigger. Ryan and Camilla saw each other whenever they could. Sometimes he would take them out to dinner at simple restaurants, places Camilla liked, nothing fancy. Other times they would just stay at her house talking while Sophia slept. Ryan felt like he could be himself. There. He didn't have to pretend. He didn't have to be the successful businessman, the man who built an empire. He could just be Ryan, and Camilla seemed to like him exactly that way. But the world outside was different. The world outside had rules, expectations, judgments, and Ryan was about to find that out the hard way. He received an invitation to a charity gala at the Westchester Country Club. It was an elegant dinner, a networking opportunity, something he usually avoided, but that his mother insisted he attend. Helen thought Ryan needed to get back out there to show that he was fine, that he had moved past being left at the altar. Ryan didn't want to go alone, so he invited Camilla. At first, she refused. "I don't have anything to wear to that kind of thing, Ryan. I don't belong in that world." But Ryan insisted. He arranged for a dress, shoes, everything. He sent a hairstylist and a makeup artist to her house. Camilla protested the whole time, saying it was too much, but Ryan wouldn't take no for an answer. He wanted her by his side. He needed her by his side. On the night of the event, when Camilla stepped out of the car in front of the club, Ryan was speechless. She was beautiful. The navy blue dress fit her perfectly, her hair was down in soft waves, and her makeup highlighted her eyes in a breathtaking way. But what impressed Ryan the most was her posture. Camilla was nervous, he could see it in her eyes, but she held her head high. She had dignity, and that was more beautiful than any dress. They entered the ballroom together. Ryan introduced Camilla to a few people, and everyone was polite, but Ryan saw the looks. He saw the raised eyebrows, the discreet whispers, the fake smiles. These people knew Camilla wasn't one of them, and they made sure to make that clear. The worst part came when Camilla went to the restroom. Ryan was waiting near the bar, and when she came back, her face was pale. A woman had mistaken her for a waitress and asked her to fetch a drink. Camilla tried to explain that she was a guest, but the woman insisted, saying she was sure she worked there. Other people overheard. They laughed. Camilla returned to Ryan with tears in her eyes. "I want to go home," she said, her voice trembling. Ryan didn't question it. He called the driver to pick them up immediately. In the car, Camilla broke down. She cried like Ryan had never seen before. It wasn't a cry of anger. It was a cry of humiliation, of pain, of feeling like she wasn't good enough. "I don't belong there," she sobbed. "I'll never belong. I'm just the woman from the catering company, the girl from the outer boroughs. No matter how many expensive clothes I wear, or how I do my hair, people will..." Always look at me and see someone inferior. Ryan held her hand tightly. Camilla, listen to me. Those people are worthless. They're empty, superficial. You're worth more than all of them put together. But Camilla shook her head. It's not about worth. It's about belonging. And I don't belong in your world, Ryan. I never will. Then maybe my world is the one that's wrong, Ryan said, his voice firm. That world left me at the altar, remember? That world saw me as half a man, but you didn't. You saw me as whole. So if I have to choose between that world and you, I choose you. Always. Camilla looked at him and something in her gaze shifted. There was surprise, there was gratitude, but there was also a new determination. I don't want to be chosen out of pity, she said, wiping her tears. I want to be chosen because I deserve it, and for that I need to prove myself. Not to them, to me. What do you mean? Ryan asked. Camilla took a deep breath. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a college degree. I'm going to get a real job. One that I get on my own merit. And when I'm ready, when I can look in the mirror and know that I've achieved everything on my own, then I'll be able to stand by your side without feeling smaller. Ryan felt his chest tighten. You're not smaller. You've never been smaller. But I feel like I am, Camilla confessed. And as long as I feel this way, it won't work. Do you understand? Ryan understood. He understood perfectly, because he also felt smaller. He also felt incomplete. And maybe they both needed to find their own wholeness before they could truly be together. Then let's do that, Ryan said. I'll help you. I'll pay for college, for courses, whatever you need. But you do it your way, on your own time, and when you're ready, we'll see what happens. Camilla looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, but on one condition. You have to let yourself be happy too. You have to stop seeing yourself as broken, because you're not. You're whole, and you always have been. Ryan felt his eyes sting. He pulled Camilla into a hug, and they held each other as if they were the only solid thing in a world that insisted on falling apart. In the months that followed, Camilla enrolled in a business administration program at a city college. She studied late into the night after putting Sophia to bed. And even when she was exhausted, she never gave up. Ryan supported her, but from a distance, respecting her wish to do things on her own. He sent her books, paid for her supplies, but never interfered in her process. Camilla was determined to prove to herself that she was capable, and she was. 6 months later, she passed all her classes with excellent grades. Ryan celebrated more than she did, sending flowers, a cake, and a card, with just one sentence written on it. I always knew you could do it. Camilla cried when she read the card, not from sadness, but from joy. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was in control of her own destiny, and that was priceless. Meanwhile, Ryan was changing too. He went back to physical therapy, not with the hope of walking again, but with the desire to be more independent. He strengthened his arms, improved his balance, and learned to do things that once seemed impossible. And whenever he felt discouraged, he thought of Camilla. He thought of her strength, her determination, and he kept going. They were both growing, separately but toward each other, and when they finally met again, they would be whole, complete, ready for whatever came next. A year passed in a blur. Camilla continued to study, work, raise Sophia, and transform into a version of herself she never knew existed. She had confidence now. She had goals. And when she saw the job posting for an administrative assistant at Ryan's company, she didn't hesitate. She applied like any other candidate, using an email address that revealed nothing about her connection to the company's owner. The hiring process was rigorous. 3 rounds, logical reasoning tests, interviews with the HR department, a resume review. Camilla went through it all without anyone knowing who she was. When she received the email saying she had been hired, she read the message 5 times before she believed it. She had done it, on her own merit, without help, without special treatment. She called Ryan that night, her voice trembling with emotion. I got it. I passed. Ryan already knew. Brenda had told him as soon as the results were out, but he hadn't said anything. He waited for Camilla to tell him, because he knew how much it meant to her. I knew you would, he said, and he could hear her smile through the phone. "You're incredible, Camilla." On her first day of work, Camilla arrived half an hour early. She wore a simple suit she had bought at a department store, her hair was up in a professional bun, and she carried a folder with a notebook and pen. When she walked into the Glass and Steel building in Midtown, the headquarters of Evans Holdings, she looked up and felt her chest tighten. This imposing place, with its 20 floors and modern architecture, was where she was going to work. Not as an intruder, not as someone there out of pity, but as an employee who had earned her spot. Ryan was in his office when Brenda told him Camilla had arrived. He wanted to go down immediately, but he held back. He couldn't treat her differently from the other employees. Not there. So he waited until the end of the day when everyone else had gone home and went to her desk. Camilla was organizing her last few papers when she saw Ryan approach. She smiled, a tired but happy smile. "How was your first day?" he asked, stopping beside her desk. "It was good," she answered, and it was true. "Everyone was nice to me. I learned a lot. I think I'm going to do well here." "I know you will," Ryan said, and then he hesitated. "Can I take you to dinner? To celebrate?" Camilla glanced around, checking if anyone else was there. They were alone. She looked back at Ryan and nodded. "You can." They went to a small Italian restaurant in the West Village, a discreet place where they could talk without being bothered. They ordered wine, pasta, and spent hours just talking about everything and nothing. Ryan told her about a new project he was developing, a line of affordable housing for middle-class families. Camilla talked about Sophia, who had gotten excellent grades in school and was dreaming of becoming a veterinarian. They laughed, they toasted, and for the first time in a long time they felt like they were exactly where they were supposed to be. When the night ended and Ryan dropped Camilla off at home, he held her hand before she got out of the car. "Camilla," he said, his voice serious, "I need to tell you something." She turned her face to him, waiting. "I'm in love with you," Ryan said directly, without beating around the bush. "I have been for a while, but I waited because I knew you needed to do things your way. But now I can't pretend that what I feel is just friendship anymore. Because it's not." Camilla was silent, and Ryan felt his heart race. He was afraid of her answer. Afraid she would say she didn't feel the same, that it was better if they just stayed friends. But then Camilla smiled. A slow, soft smile, full of something he couldn't name. "I'm in love with you too," she confessed, her voice low, almost a whisper. "I think I always have been, since that day at the wedding. But I was scared. Scared of not being enough. Scared that you were with me out of pity." Ryan shook his head firmly. "It was never pity. Never. You are the strongest, most incredible, most real person I have ever met, and I love you for that, for everything you are." Camilla felt her eyes sting. Then she leaned in, and their lips met in a soft, hesitant kiss that was full of truth. It was a kiss that carried months of waiting, of doubts, of growth. It was a kiss that said everything words couldn't. When they pulled apart, Ryan held her face in his hands. "We're going to have to take it slow," he said, "because of work. I can't give you special treatment in there. People will talk." "I know," Camilla agreed, "and I don't want that. I want to be treated like everyone else, but out here," she smiled, "out here we can just be us." And that's how it began. Ryan and Camilla kept their relationship a secret at work. No one knew they were together, but outside of the office they were inseparable. Ryan spent weekends at Camilla's house, playing with Sophia, helping the girl with her homework, taking them on outings. Camilla would go to his penthouse when Sophia stayed with her grandmother, and the two would spend the night talking, laughing, discovering each other in ways that went far beyond the physical. The relationship matured quickly. It wasn't something superficial based on attraction. It was something deep, built on months of friendship, respect, and recognition. Ryan had never felt so seen in his life, and Camilla had never felt so valued. But the world outside isn't kind to those who defy the rules, and Ryan and Camilla were about to find that out in the worst way possible. It all started with a photo. Someone saw them leaving a movie theater on Fifth Avenue and snapped a picture. Nothing scandalous, just the two of them walking side by side, Ryan in his wheelchair and Camilla pushing it distractedly as they talked. But the person who took the photo sold it to a gossip website, and the next day, the headline was everywhere. Billionaire developer and his catering staff, Cinderella, the new romance, shocking New York. Ryan saw the article on his phone when he woke up. His stomach churned. The report featured photos of them, details about Camilla's past, and speculation about how they had met. There was a sensationalist, almost cruel tone that implied Camilla was a gold digger who had taken advantage of Ryan's vulnerability. He called Camilla immediately, but she already knew. Her voice was trembling when she answered, "Ryan, people at work have seen it. Everyone's talking. I don't know what to do." "Don't do anything," Ryan said, trying to stay calm. "Let me handle this." But how could he handle it? The news had already spread. Social media was flooded with comments. Some defended the couple, saying love doesn't see social class. But most were cruel. They called Camilla an opportunist, a user, a fortune hunter. They said she had wormed her way into Ryan's life because he was vulnerable. They said things that made Ryan's blood boil. He had Brenda issue an official statement. "Mr. Ryan Evans's personal life is private, and he will not be making any comments regarding his relationships. We ask that the press respect his privacy and that of his loved ones." But the statement did nothing. The press continued. More articles, more photos, more speculation. And then, as if the situation wasn't bad enough, Jessica reappeared. She sent Ryan a text. "We need to talk. It's urgent." Ryan ignored it. She insisted, calling several times, until he finally answered, exasperated. "What do you want, Jessica?" Her voice was soft, almost sweet. "I saw the news, and I got worried about you." Ryan let out a bitter laugh. "Worried? You left me at the altar and now you're worried." "I made a mistake," Jessica admitted, and there was something rehearsed in her tone. "I was confused, scared, but I never stopped loving you, Ryan. And seeing you with that woman, a woman who is clearly with you for your money, made me realize that I need to fight for what's ours." "There is no ours anymore," Ryan said coldly. "You made it very clear what you think of me that day. Half a man. Remember." "I was wrong," Jessica insisted. "I was scared. But now I know I can handle everything. The wheelchair, the limitations. I love you, Ryan. I really do." Ryan hung up on her. He had no patience for this. Jessica had only come back because she saw he was happy, because she couldn't stand the idea that he had moved on without her. But he wasn't going to fall for it. Not again. But Jessica didn't give up. She started showing up at places where she knew Ryan would be. Company events, grand openings, charity dinners. Always with that falsely innocent smile, always trying to strike up a conversation. Ryan ignored her, but he knew it was affecting Camilla. And then came the final blow. A man showed up at Camilla's door on a Saturday afternoon. Camilla was alone. Sophia was at a birthday party. When she opened the door, her blood ran cold. It was Tyler, Sophia's father, the man who had abandoned her when she was pregnant 8 years ago. "Hey, Camilla," he said with a cynical smile. "Long time no see." "What do you want?" Camilla asked, her voice trembling with anger and fear. Tyler shrugged. "Saw you in the news. Looks like you've upgraded, huh? Dating a billionaire, who would have thought?" Camilla crossed her arms. "I have nothing to say to you. Get out." But Tyler didn't move. "Actually, I came here to make you an offer." He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. "I'm filing for joint custody of Sophia, and if you don't want this to turn into a long, messy court battle, you'll pay me $50,000. Then I'll drop the case, and we never have to see each other again." Camilla felt the floor drop out from under her. "Are you blackmailing me?" "I'm offering a solution," Tyler corrected cynically. "Your choice, either you pay up or we settle it in court, and that's going to get ugly. I've got a good lawyer, you know, and judges love to give a repentant father a second chance." Camilla slammed the door in his face, but her hands were shaking so badly she could barely turn the lock. She leaned against the wall and slid to the floor, hugging her knees. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when she had finally managed to rebuild her life. She called Ryan, her voice breaking. He showed up, Sophia's father. He wants money. Ryan felt rage explode inside him. I'll handle this, he said firmly. Don't worry, I'll handle it. And he tried. He hired the best lawyers, investigated Tyler's past, and found out he had debts, a criminal record, a rap sheet that would make it impossible for him to get custody of Sophia. But while the lawyers worked, Tyler kept threatening her. He sent messages to Camilla, showed up at her work, and made it clear he wasn't going to back down. Camilla was on the verge of a breakdown. She wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating, and was constantly on edge. And worst of all, she felt like she was being suffocated. Ryan was trying to help, but to her it felt like he was taking control of her life. Once again, someone with more power was deciding what was best for her, and she hated it. The tension between them grew. They had their first fight one night after work. Ryan wanted Camilla to take a temporary leave from the company until the whole situation was resolved. He thought it would be safer, less stressful. But Camilla refused. I'm not leaving. My job because some jerk is threatening me, she said, her voice rising. I earned that position. I deserve to be there. And no one is going to take that away from me. I'm just trying to protect you, Ryan shot back, frustrated. Why won't you let me help you? Because I don't need to be saved, Camilla yelled, and the tears finally came. I've been saved before. My grandmother saved me when I was a kid. You saved me at that wedding, and I'm tired of needing to be saved. I want to handle things myself. I need to. Handle them myself. Ryan fell silent, processing that. And then he realized that in trying to protect her, he was taking away her agency. He was making her feel small again, and that was the last thing he wanted. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't want to make you feel that way. Camilla wiped her tears and looked at him. I know you want to help, but I need to do this my way, even if it takes longer, even if it's harder. Ryan nodded, but something inside him broke in that moment. He wanted to be by her side, but he didn't know how to do it without suffocating her. And she wanted to be strong, but she didn't know how to ask for help without feeling weak. 2 days later, Camilla found out the truth. A co-worker told her, not knowing she was dropping a bomb. Did you see that Ryan's ex-fiancée is paying that guy to harass you? It was in a gossip column today. Apparently, she hired a private investigator, found your daughter's father, and is funding the whole thing to get you out of the picture. Camilla felt her world collapse. Jessica. This was all Jessica's fault. She was trying to destroy their relationship, and she was succeeding because Camilla was exhausted. She was tired of fighting, tired of being judged, tired of feeling that no matter how hard she tried, she would never be good enough for that world. She went home that night and made the hardest decision of her life. She picked up her phone and sent a text to Ryan. I don't belong in your world. No matter how hard I try, how much I fight, there will always be someone trying to push me out, and I can't take it anymore. I love you. But love isn't enough. It's over. Ryan read the message and felt as if someone had ripped his heart out of his chest. He tried to call, but Camilla didn't answer. He tried to go to her house, but she wouldn't open the door. She had made her decision and she wasn't going back, because she believed deep in her soul that this was the only way to protect herself and her daughter. And Ryan, for the second time in his life, was abandoned. But this time, it hurt even more. Because this time, he knew he had lost something real. Ryan didn't leave his apartment for 2 weeks. Brenda tried to get him to go to the office, but he refused everything. Meetings were rescheduled, contracts were left unsigned, phone calls went unanswered. He had simply given up. The massive, silent penthouse became a prison where Ryan locked himself away with his own pain. He spent his days looking out at the city below, millions of lights twinkling, millions of people living their lives, and he felt completely disconnected from it all. Camilla was gone. She had chosen to leave his life. And the worst part was, Ryan understood. He understood why she had done it. He had seen the exhaustion in her eyes, had felt the weight she was carrying. But understanding didn't make the pain any less. It didn't make the emptiness inside him go away. Brenda came by every day, leaving food that Ryan barely touched, trying to make conversation, but he would only respond in monosyllables. Helen visited 3 times, and each time she sat in the living room with her son, who looked like an empty shell of the man he used to be. On her 3rd visit, she couldn't take it anymore. "Ryan, you need to snap out of this," she said, her voice firm but laced with worry. "You can't just give up like this." Ryan turned to his mother, his eyes dull. "I didn't give up, Mum. I just accepted reality. I'm not meant to be happy, it's as simple as that." Helen felt her heart ache. She had raised this man, had watched him grow, build an empire, overcome a devastating accident, and now she was watching him surrender. She couldn't allow it. "That woman made you happy," Helen said, and it was a statement, not a question. "I saw you with her. I saw how you smiled, how you lit up, you were alive again." "And now she's gone," Ryan answered bitterly. "Because I'm not enough. Because my world is too toxic. Because it can't work." Helen was silent for a long moment. Then she stood up, grabbed her purse and looked at her son. "I'm going to fix this," she said, determined. "Even if you've given up, I haven't." Ryan didn't even have the energy to ask what she meant. He just went back to staring out the window, lost in his own thoughts. Helen left the penthouse with a plan. She had the driver take her to Corona, to the address she had gotten from Brenda. When she arrived in front of the small house with the blue gate, Helen took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Camilla opened the door and froze when she saw Helen Evans standing there, impeccable as always in a grey dress with an expensive handbag looped over her arm. "Mrs. Evans?" Camilla said, surprised and uncomfortable. "What are you doing here?" "I came to talk to you," Helen answered directly. "May I come in?" Camilla hesitated but opened the gate. The 2 women entered the small living room and Helen looked around, not hiding her curiosity. There was no judgment in her gaze, just observation. "Please have a seat," Camilla offered, tense. Helen sat on the couch and Camilla remained standing, waiting. She knew why Ryan's mother was here. She had come to offer her money, to ask her to disappear from her son's life. It was always like this with people like Helen. Everything could be solved with money. But Helen surprised her. "I came here with the intention of paying you." "To get out of my son's life," Helen began honestly. "I was going to offer you a generous sum and ask you to never show your face again, because I thought you were the problem." Camilla felt anger rise but said nothing. She let Helen continue. "But then I got here and I saw you open the door. I saw your home. I saw your daughter's drawings on the wall, and I realized something." Helen paused. "You're not the problem. I am." Camilla blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "I've spent my entire life trying to control everything," Helen continued, and there was a vulnerability in her voice that Camilla never expected to hear. "When Ryan's father died, he was only 10. I was left alone with a young son and an empire to run. So I became hard. I became controlling. I thought if I controlled everything, nothing bad could happen. But I was wrong." Helen looked down at her own hands, and Camilla saw that they were trembling slightly. "I pushed Ryan to marry Jessica. Not literally, but I made it clear that it was what I expected of him. A strategic union between families of the same standing. I thought I was protecting him. But what I did was nearly destroy him because that woman didn't love him. She loved the money, the status, the image. And when he ended up in the wheelchair, she showed her true colors." Camilla felt something loosen inside her. She sat on the couch across from Helen and waited for her to continue. "You, on the other hand," Helen turned to face Camilla, "you don't want anything from him. You don't want the money. You don't want the status. You just want him. And it took me a while to see that. But I see it now. You are the best thing that ever happened to my son. And I almost ruined it all again." Camilla felt her eyes sting. "I didn't break up with him because I don't love him," she said, her voice choked. "I broke up with him because I was tired of fighting, tired of being judged, tired of feeling like I would never be good enough." "You are more than enough," Helen said, and there was absolute conviction in her voice. "You gave my son something that no amount of money in the world can buy. You gave him hope, you gave him life, you gave him real love." The 2 sat in silence for a moment. Then Sophia came running out of her room, all excited, not noticing the tension in the air. "Mommy, Grandma Rita called and said she's coming on Sunday to bring cake. Camilla smiled at her daughter. That's great, sweetie. It'll be nice to see Grandma. Sophia then noticed Helen and stopped, curious. Hi, are you Mommy's friend? Helen smiled, and it was a genuine smile. I am. My name is Helen. I'm Sophia. The girl held out her hand, politely. Nice to meet you. Helen shook the small hand and felt something stir inside her. This child was adorable. She was polite, affectionate, happy, and Camilla had done it all on her own. Helen felt an immense admiration for the woman sitting beside her. Sophia went back to her room and Helen looked at Camilla again. You've raised an incredible little girl. Thank you, Camilla said quietly. Helen took a deep breath. I've taken care of the problem with Sophia's father. My lawyer's got a court order preventing him from seeking custody. He has a criminal record, proven parental abandonment and a string of debts that make him unfit to have any kind of custody. He won't bother you again. Camilla's eyes widened. You did that? I did. And I'm also suing Jessica for harassment and manipulation. She won't be coming near Ryan's life again. I guarantee it. Camilla felt the tears finally stream down her face. She had spent weeks living in fear, feeling trapped, not knowing how to solve it. And now, suddenly, the problems were being solved. Not by her, but by someone who was on her side. Why are you doing this? Camilla asked, her voice trembling. Helen smiled, a sad smile. Because I also loved a man my family didn't approve of, Ryan's father. My parents thought he wasn't good enough, that I should marry someone from our circle, but I married him anyway, and those were the best years of my life. Camilla didn't know what to say. She looked at Helen and saw for the first time not the cold, controlling matriarch, but a woman who had her own scars. I don't want Ryan to make the same mistake I did, Helen continued. I lost my husband too soon, and after that, I tried to control everything around Ryan. But in the end, I only pushed him away from happiness. Now I just want to see him happy. And he's happy with you. So, please, give him another chance. Give yourselves another chance. Camilla wiped her tears. I'm scared, she confessed. Scared it won't work out. Scared of hurting Sophia if it ends again. Fear is part of it, Helen said gently. But so is love. And sometimes we have to be brave enough to choose love, even when we're afraid. The two talked for another hour. Helen told stories about Ryan as a child, and Camilla laughed for the first time in weeks. When Helen finally stood up to leave, she took Camilla's hands. Thank you for loving my son, she said, her voice thick with emotion, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see how special you are. Camilla hugged Helen, a tight embrace full of gratitude and relief. 2 days later, Camilla was on her back porch, watching Sophia play in the yard, when she heard the doorbell ring. She went to answer it, and when she opened the door, her breath caught in her throat. Ryan was there in his wheelchair, holding a small portable speaker in his hands. His eyes were red as if he hadn't slept in days, but there was a determination in his gaze that Camilla knew well. Ryan, she whispered. He didn't say anything. He just turned on the speaker and the music started to play. It was the same song that had played at that wedding, the song that was playing when they first danced. Camilla felt her heart pound. Ryan held out his hand to her. Will you dance with me? Camilla looked at his outstretched hand and all. The defenses she had built up over the past few weeks crumbled. She took his hand, and Ryan pulled her close, holding her firmly. They began to move, slowly, to the sound of the music. Camilla held his shoulders, and Ryan held her waist, and they just swayed, there in the doorway of her house, as if the entire world had stopped just for them. I'm so sorry, Ryan said, his voice hoarse. I tried to protect you, but I ended up suffocating you. I wanted to be the hero, but I forgot that you didn't need saving. You were always strong on your own. Camilla felt the tears fall. And I'm sorry for giving up, for leaving. I was scared of not being enough. You were always enough, Ryan said firmly. Always, from the very first day. And I don't want to live without you. I don't want to spend another day without seeing your smile, without hearing your voice, without feeling like I'm truly alive. Camilla sobbed and hugged him tightly. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Ryan answered, holding her as if he would never let go. "Now, teach me how to live, not as a project but as your partner, as equals." Camilla pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. "As equals," she repeated, smiling through her tears. That's when Sophia came running out, thrilled to see Ryan there. "Uncle Ryan, you're back!" Ryan opened his arms, and Sophia jumped into his lap, hugging him with all the strength an 8-year-old has. He held the little girl, and when she pulled back a little to look at his face, there was something different in her eyes. "Are you going to stay with us now?" she asked hopefully. Ryan looked at Camilla, who nodded through her tears. Then he looked back at Sophia and smiled. "I am. If you'll have me, I'll stay forever." Sophia squealed with joy and hugged him again. And then, without thinking, without calculating, she said something that changed everything. "I always wanted a dad." Ryan felt his chest tighten. He looked at Camilla, silently asking for permission, and she nodded again, crying openly now. He turned his gaze back to Sophia and held her small face in his hands. "And I always wanted a daughter," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Looks like we're a perfect match, don't you think?" Sophia smiled and hugged him one more time. And in that moment, Ryan felt that he had finally found what he had been searching for his entire life. A family. A real one. The following months were about rebuilding. Ryan and Camilla didn't rush. They took it slow, building their relationship on a solid foundation, talking about everything, solving problems together. Ryan started his physical therapy with more intensity, not because he thought he needed to walk to be whole, but because he wanted to be more independent. He wanted to be able to keep up with Sophia in more places, to be able to do more things, and slowly, with a lot of effort, he started to see progress. A year later, Ryan proposed to Camilla again, but this time was different. It was at home, just the two of them and Sophia. No pomp, no audience, no pressure. Just 3 people who loved each other deciding to officially become a family. Camilla said yes, and Sophia jumped for joy. The wedding was simple. It took place at a small venue in upstate New York, with only their closest, friends and family, 20 guests tops, Camilla's grandmother, Helen, Brenda, a few real friends. There were no expensive decorations, no fancy catering. There was only love. Camilla walked down the aisle on her grandmother's arm, while Sophia tossed white flower petals in her path. She wore a simple dress, but she was radiant. Ryan waited at the altar in a suit, and when he saw her approaching, he felt like his heart was going to burst with emotion. The officiant, a childhood friend of Ryan's, conducted the ceremony in a light, relaxed way. When it was time for the vows, Ryan took Camilla's hands and took a deep breath. "I promise to dance with you," he said, his voice firm but emotional, "even when the world says it's not possible, even when my legs don't work, because I've learned that dancing was never about the legs. It was always about the heart. And my heart is all yours." Camilla smiled through her tears. "And I promise not to give up. Not on you, not on us, not on our family. Because you taught me that being strong isn't about carrying everything alone. It's about having the courage to share the weight. And I want to share everything with you. The joys, the sorrows, the good days and the bad, everything." The officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and when Ryan pulled Camilla in for a kiss, the whole room applauded. But the two of them barely heard it. They were lost in their own world, finally whole, finally together. And then came the surprise. Ryan had Brenda bring something that had been hidden in the back of the room. It was a set of parallel bars, just like the ones he used in physical therapy. Camilla frowned, confused, but Ryan just smiled. "I have a gift for you," he said, "but you'll have to come closer to see it." Camilla approached, still not understanding. Ryan positioned his chair between the parallel bars and, with Brenda's help, gripped the bars with both hands. And then, slowly, with immense effort, he began to stand up. The entire room fell silent. Camilla brought her hands to her mouth, her eyes wide. Ryan was standing, shaking, leaning completely on the bars, but standing. He looked at her and smiled. "I've been training in secret for the last 6 months," he explained, his voice trembling. "From the effort. Because I wanted to show you that we can do things that seem impossible, if we believe, if we have someone to fight for." Camilla ran to him and hugged him, careful not to throw him off balance. She was crying, laughing, unable to form words. Sophia came running too and hugged her father's legs, squealing with joy. It was a moment no one there would ever forget. Ryan sat back down in his chair, exhausted but happy. And when the music started to play, he held out his hand to Camilla once more. Shall we, a real dance now?" And they danced. Camilla gently pushed the chair as she moved with him, and Sophia danced around them, jumping and laughing. And in that moment, everyone there understood what Ryan had said in his vows. Dancing was never about the legs. It was always about the heart. Months later, life had settled into a new routine. Ryan, Camilla, and Sophia lived in a spacious, accessible house in a quiet New York suburb. Camilla's grandmother lived in the guest house out back, spending her days tending to her garden and baking cakes for her granddaughter. Sophia now carried the last name Evans Rodriguez, a symbol of the union of their two families. She had grown, was more mature, and talked constantly about becoming a veterinarian when she grew up. One Sunday afternoon, Ryan was in the backyard having a barbecue. He had gotten good at it, turning the skewers, controlling the flames, all from his wheelchair. Camilla and Sophia were running across the lawn with the dog they had adopted a few months ago, a little caramel-colored mutt that Sophia had insisted on naming Popcorn. Her grandmother sat on the porch watching everything with a smile on her face. Ryan paused for a moment and just took in the scene. His wife and daughter running barefoot on the grass, the dog barking happily, the smell of grilling meat, the sound of laughter. This was happiness. This was life. This was everything he had always wanted, but never knew he needed. On the living room wall, right next to their wedding photo, was a drawing Sophia had made. It showed 3 people, one in a wheelchair, holding hands. Underneath, in a child's crooked handwriting, it said, "Our family." Ryan went inside to get more meat and stopped in front of the drawing. He touched the paper with his fingertips and smiled. Then he looked out the window, watching Camilla and Sophia playing outside, and felt a deep peace settle in his chest. He thought about everything he had been through, the accident, being left at the altar, the pain, the loneliness. But he also thought about Camilla, about Sophia, about Helen, who had become a loving and present grandmother. He thought about the family he had built from the ruins of the life he thought he was supposed to have. And then Ryan understood something it had taken him years to learn. Sometimes life pulls the ground out from under you, not to destroy you, but to teach you that dancing was never about the legs. It was always about the heart, and his heart had never been fuller. He went back out to the yard, and Camilla ran up to him, sweaty and smiling. "Give me a kiss, husband." Ryan pulled her close and kissed her with all the love he had inside him. Sophia made a face, saying they were gross, but she was laughing. Popcorn barked, demanding attention. And life, that beautiful, imperfect, real life, went on, because in the end, what mattered wasn't where they had come from. It was where they were going. Together. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Ryan and Camilla has touched your heart. If you were moved by this journey of resilience, true love, and second chances, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what part of the story resonated with you the most. Every day, we bring you intense stories like this one, revealing the deepest side of the human soul. Stories that show that true love knows no barriers, that strength comes from within, and that sometimes we have to lose everything to find what truly matters. We'll see you in the next episode with another story that will stir your emotions.